ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। कलानिधि विभाग की ओर से सभागार में उपस्थित बुद्ध मंडली को स्वागत करता हूँ। श्री नीरज कुमार जी द्वारा लिखित पुस्तक दी काल चक्र तंत्र ट्रांसलेशन एनोटेशन एंड कमेंट्री की विमोचन तथा परिचर्चा के लिए हम इस सभागार में सम्मिलित हुए हैं। सबसे पहले मैं कलानिधि विभाग के विभागाध्यक्ष प्रोफेसर रमेश चंद्र गौड़ जी से आग्रह करता हूं कि वे इस सभा के माननीय अध्यक्ष, लेखक तथा विशिष्ट वक्ताओं के साथ मंच पर पधारें। अब मैं प्रोफेसर रमेश चंद्र गौड़ जी से आग्रह करता हूं कि वे अतिथियों का स्वागत अंगवस्त्रम तथा मेमेंटो द्वारा करें। प्रोफेसर शशि बालाजी। प्रोफेसर एलपी सिंह जी। प्रोफेसर मधु खन्ना जी। और पुस्तक के लेखक श्री नीरज कुमार जी। इस सभा को संबोधित करने के लिए मैं प्रोफेसर रमेश चंद्र गौड़ जी से पुनः आग्रह करता हूँ।
Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts under IGNCA Book Circle program regularly organize book discussion and book launch program. And in this series today we all have assembled here to launch the book by Mr. Neeraj Kumar, the Kal Chakra Tantra, translation, annotation and commentary. And we have a very eminent panel to launch the book and having discussion on such an important subject. So it's indeed a great honor in welcoming our guest and our honorable chair of this book discussion, Param Sidre Sri Ram Bahadur Rai ji, who is always a motivating force behind such programs. So thank you, sir, for agreeing to chair the session and also your kind presence. I welcome you. First, congratulations, Neeraj ji, and thank you for agreeing to have the discussion on this book here. We all know India possesses more than 10 million manuscripts on different aspects of Indian culture, tradition, astronomy, astrophysics, and different other aspects. Many of these manuscripts, I think most of these manuscripts are in the languages and script which me and you cannot read it. And we need some scholarly help or some good work by a scholar like Neeraj ji to translate it and provide the value addition in form of commentary. And this book, which is basically on Buddhism Tantra, is one of the subject which has been very strongly debated, not just in India but all over the world. I remember we did a program with the Hungarian Cultural Center, and we celebrated one scholar, Alexander Choma, and he happened to be the scholar who came to India in search of roots of the Hungarian, but otherwise he found this Buddhism Tantra and he did a lot of good work on this context. So this is a very, very important topic, and I'm not going to speak. I will not take more time. Just I welcome all of you and look forward to listening over all the speakers. With these words, I once again thank you all. Thank you very much.
अब मैं इस सभा के माननीय अध्यक्ष तथा आईजीएनसी के माननीय अध्यक्ष श्री राम बहादुर राय जी और सारे विशिष्ट वक्ताएं और लेखक श्री नीरज कुमार जी से निवेदन करता हूं कि पुस्तक का विमोचन करें। और पब्लिशर की तरफ से, डीके पब्लिशर की तरफ से उनसे वो अब मैं श्री नीरज कुमार जी से आग्रह करता हूँ कि वे इस पुस्तक के बारे में हम सबको विदित करें।
माननीय राय साहेब जी, जो ही इज लाइक माई गार्जियन फॉर मोर देन 2 decades in Delhi, distinguished panelists, many of whom have been my constant guide, and enthusiastic audience. It's an extraordinary moment to finally see the first volume of Kal Chakra Tantra getting released today. I'm not a student of philosophy or Buddhist study. I'm not a Buddhist also. I did not study Sanskrit, but the task of translating this magnificent work of Indian civilization has been accomplished. Not only that, I have also composed a new commentary, and that too slok by slok. The previous Indian commentary was Vimal Prabhat Tika by Kalki Pundarik, written during the first half of the 11th century. I could accomplish it. It was not only the effort that I put up, even putting up my own health at peril, but it was the grace of the Shaktis. In fact, today is my mother's birthday. Without the blessings of the mothers, both biological and spiritual, great challenges can never be overcome. I belong to Magad. Both Gaya, Nalanda and Rajgir fills one's mind with wonder. Why would Chinese Tibetic master, Korean monks, Tibetans, Javanese, Tangut, Burmese scholars visit these places thousands of years ago when both overland and maritime journey were dangerous? There must be something special. That something I noted was the Nalanda tradition. I kept searching for the scholarly works to know what exactly was Nalanda tradition. It was sometimes in 2014. Certainty arose when I found the Sanskrit text of the Kal Chakra Tantra. This indeed is the guidebook of Nalanda tradition. So that thing came from within. But the Kal Chakra Tantra in popular imagination is that of Kal Chakra ceremonies organized by Tibetan masters. We know even His Holiness Dalai Lama has organized 34 Kal Chakra initiation ceremonies since 1957. And these elaborate rituals appear unintelligible to a distant observer. The Kal Chakra public ceremonies itself is a new phenomenon. Japan had imposed 21 demands on China in 1915 that included freedom to build Buddhist temples in China. Then Chinese Buddhists, they were outraged since they felt humiliated that the chela of Chinese Buddhism would teach them back Buddhism. Japanese Buddhists argued that even though Japan inherited Buddhism from China, Tantric Buddhism has been preserved and active in China, while China lost the Tantric school. Chinese Buddhists then found Tibetan Tantra for their Tantric revival movement. Moreover, Tibetan Tantra was imported directly from India, thus it was to be treated as more authentic compared to Japanese esoteric Buddhism. At this moment, then this Republic of China, because at that time it was the nationalist government, they started inviting the then Panchen Lama, 9th Panchen Lama, from Tibet to Mongolia as well as China. It was this Panchen Lama Thupten Choki Nima who started holding public ceremonies of the Kal Chakra Tantra. He held 9 such ceremonies. In fact, in October 1932, he held a huge ceremony in the Hall of Supreme Harmony at the center of the Forbidden Palace in Beijing, and this was attended by more than 1 lakh audience. This Panchen Lama then started selling Dream of Shambhala to east and west, north and south, because he would also come up to Darjeeling. Let us see how this Shambhala narrative from Kal Chakra Tantra became a central point for modern age philosophers and new age gurus. The 6th Panchen Lama had written an imaginary travel account of Shambhala in 1775, Shambhala Lam Ig. And actually they would not travel to Shambhala. They would say, ki, we have traveled in our imagination. We are visionary travelers. So this is interesting. Ki, how can history be changed by visions of these visionary travelers? The Shambhala myth was picked up by the subsequent Panchen Lamas. In one of the essays in 1833, the Hungarian explorer of Himalayas, Alexander Soma de Koros, about whom Professor Gaul just mentioned, he put Shambhala at the source of origin of happiness. And he he put the latitude of the place between 45 degree and 50 degree north, that is near the Arctic. His essay, titled Note on the Origin of the Kal Chakra and Adi Buddha System, was in fact the first Western account on the Kal Chakra system. Helena Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophist movement, she picked up from that point and she put Shambhala in Gobi Desert of Mongolia. And she prophesied that the last Kalki avatar would come from Shambhala. Some scholars in their work have explored how, in fact, Blavatsky herself was being guided by Panchen Lama's emissary, one DK. 9 Panchen Lama started putting Shambhala in Tibet because Helena Blavatsky and Dikoro, they were saying that Shambhala was in Mongolia, Gobi Desert. But then this 9 Panchen Lama said, no, Shambhala is in Tibet itself. So he started propagating that Tibet itself is Shambhala and that he himself will be the last Kalki king who would eliminate the barbarian religion and establish Buddhist Dharma. On the other hand, there were Mongolian historians who claimed that Shambhala was in Mongolia and Changiz Khan was a Kalki king. Mongols also wrote visionary travel accounts about mythical Shambhala. These days, we all know Madam Sasibala has been there. There is a place called Khamarin Khid in Gobi Desert. This is being popularized as Shambhala, and there people say there is a gate within the monastery from which you can enter the realm of Shambhala. This place was established in 1830 by a mystic scholar, Danjan Ravaja, and in fact, recently people have started proposing that this Shambhala is just, below the Sukhavati heaven where Buddha Amitabha resides in his Sambhog Kaya. So this Shambhala was also termed as Sangrila in some Western accounts, and there was one novel in 1933, Lost Horizon, a movie was also filmed over this novel. So James Hilton started propagating that Shambhala is the Sangrila. I also came across accounts of how China had declared a small region Diking as Sangrila officially in 1997. For me, it was a world of confusion. Where is Shambhala? What is Shambhala? If Shambhala is where the Kalacakra Tantra originated, how did it become capsule of Nalanda tradition? When I started deciphering the text of the Kalacakra Tantra, I realized Shambhala cannot be located so north near the Arctic. If it was a real geography, in Shambhala, the list of food items which are to be eaten, these are in Sanskrit I am saying, Dadhi, Gud, Sahitang, Polika, Modkang. Dadhi is curd, Gud is jaggery, Polika is puri, and Modkang is laddu. So puri, laddu, dahi. Then I realized that this must be somewhere near India or within India. So this can't be near the Arctic. So moreover, the text clearly mentions that Shambhala is encircled by plain mountains. These are not snow-capped mountains, while Mount Kailash is encircled by snow-capped mountains. I was certain that Shambhala is in tropical region, close to Indian habits and customs. Even today, when we are holding this public event, it is just next to Hotel Sangrila. So, I realized this Tantra needs to be fully studied from the perspective of the composer. Once I concluded that Naropa was the composer of this king of Tantra, I studied accounts about his habits. He used to chew lot of pan. So I also picked up the habit of chewing pan, and lo, the coded text started revealing the author's perspective. So it took full 7 years to complete the study and finish the commentary. I found how Alexander Soma Dikoros, without having understanding of astronomy, wrongly assumed Shambhala between 45 and 50 degree latitude. And this mistake was not rechecked and adopted by subsequent storytellers. Now, coming to the book, there are 5 chapters in the Kal Chakra Tantra containing 1047 slokas. I have devoted 1 volume each for each chapter. Whole project runs into 2700 pages. This first volume runs into 685 pages. It has a 224-page introduction that locates Shambhala and Odiyana. Apart from establishing authorship of Kal Chakra Tantra with Naropa, I have found how the epoch period of the Kal Chakra calendar, the point from which you start doing the planetary computation, this epoch date that coincides with disappearance of Guru Padmasambhav, the second Buddha. Surprisingly, 14th Dalai Lama, who has conferred 34 Kal Chakra ceremonies, and he composed a stuti for 17 Nalanda Pandit, but the list does not include either Naropa or Padmasambhav. The website of Dalai Lama shows Kal Chakra having been composed in Central Asia based upon unfounded storytelling by some Western scholar. I felt the anguish. Kal Chakra Tantra is truly Indian in character. It is a guidebook of the Nalanda tradition. The attempt at de-Indianization of this tradition cannot be countered if we do not re-own the last phase of Buddhism. Just like, and this Kal Chakra Tantra was the last great Buddhist text which was composed in India. And this is also known as the king of Tantra. Just like there was revival of Buddhism in China a century ago when Chela Japan attempted to browbeat China with its own variant of Buddhism, India being the permanent guru need to re-own Buddhism. We can no longer play second fiddle to the mutant versions of Buddhism being pushed by Chelas against our own citizens. To decipher this coded text composed in twilight Sandh Bhasha language, it was a dream of luminaries like Rahul Sanskritine, Lokesh Chandaji, Nicholas Roerich, Helena Blavatsky, and so forth. I could do it sitting in near my Nirman Bhavan, and I can find many of my old colleagues present here. Under the ongoing Central Vista project, a stupa holding the sacred relics of Buddha will be built at the center of the Vista. All these are auspicious indication of Punarnirman of our Buddhist heritage. My pentalogy on this extraordinary text is a small tribute to grand masters of Nalanda and the dynamic parampara of Bharat. My gratefulness to Rai Sahib, who is not only a great Karma Yogi but also a sadhak of highest level, Professor Gaur, Sumit, and to whole team at IGNCA for holding this memorable event. Also to my wife and my daughter Priya and Nidhi, who are all among audience and who kept motivating me to complete this challenging task. To Professor Madhu Khanna Madam, who has been guiding me during the writing phase. To fellow panelists Singh Sir, Sasiwala Madam, and then to Kasinath ji, foremost to Sushil ji of DK Print World, who is like elder brother and whose perseverance is of legendary proportion. To Manya R.P. Modi ji of Modi University, who did part finance of the publication of this project. Thank you very much to a great audience, and now enjoy the scholarly discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for enlightening us about this Mahagranth penned by you, sir. Now I request Professor L.P. Singh ji, who is a very senior scholar on Buddhist Tantra and a former professor of the University of Delhi, to give his views about the book.
Mr. Chairman, sir, and fellow panelists and audience. Actually, I consider it my great honor and privilege to present here and say something about the Tantra. Particularly, after a long time I met Rai Sahab, and I know him for last 5 decades. And he is a great scholar, thinker, and so this I find it a good opportunity of meeting my old friends and acquaintances. Actually, I am not only a scholar of Buddhist Tantra, I have written a book on Buddhist Tantra, but actually my daily thesis is in Tantra, its mystic and scientific basis. And I got Delhi degree from Ranchi University. Probably I was the first person who has been awarded Delhi degree by Ranchi University in 1972. And during that, I tried to collect lot of books and gone through the lot of manuscripts that are lying at the Indian, that's Asiatic Society and National Library, Calcutta. So that because the Tantra has been greatly, that's a misunderstood because of the use of the Panchamakar sadhana, 5. But the whole tantric text and literatures have been written and presented in a that is called Sandhya Bhasa, twilight language. So apparent meaning of those words and the concept is quite different from the real, because it has been it was not for the public to know about the real meaning. Those only who get initiation into the Tantra, they only understand the real meaning and significance of different symbols and the words. Like Maithuna, that's a copulation. So if you go through the tantric text, then you will, a lot of tantric text has been published by, say the Adar, that's called there, Mahanirvan Tantra and other. And George Arthur, he has actually kept the Tantra, presented the Tantra in a proper perspective. And he has a great scholar, no doubt about it. Then Mahamahopadhyaya Gopinath Kaviraj. Gopinath Kaviraj was a great, scholar, thinker, and himself he was a great yogi. And I have had the fortune of meeting him long before at the Varanasi, Anandamayi Ashram. So all these things, I try to understand Maithuna. Maithuna is a copulation, but it's not a physical copulation. When the Kundalini, there are three basic factors to be understood about the Tantra: Mantra, Yantra, and Kundalini. So the Kundalini, this is again, Mantra is the same in Buddhist Tantra also. And the Yantra is called Mandala. And what's called the Kundalini is called Heruka. So only I have had the fortune of discussing about the Tantra, Hindu Tantra and Buddhist Tantra, with His Holiness Dalai Lama also, for quite some time when he had not become, that's a iconic figure. And I was a professor. They wrongly said I am professor of Delhi University. I was a visiting professor for some time, but actually I was a university professor at the Magad University, Bodh Gaya. And after that, of course, I got fellowship from the Indian Institute Advanced Studies, Shimla, and I became a visiting professor in America also. That's a different thing altogether. But I have had the fortune of discussing, and we discussed about that Hindu Tantra and Buddhist Tantra, the same. There cannot be a Indian physics and say say British physics. Physics is the physics. So Tantra, so we call it Lalna, Rasna and Avdhutika in Buddhist Tantra, Ira, Pingla and Susumna. So then Tantra and Ved, there are a lot of confusion also. So Tantra and Ved are the warp and woof of the Indian culture. So all these things has to be understood. And the Maithun is when the Kundalini, after piercing the different chakra, Padma, reaches the Usnis Kamal, that is called in Hindu Tantra called that's called the Sahasrar Chakra. In Buddhist Tantra it is called Usnis Kamal. So when it reaches Usnis Kamal, say that's a real copulation. That's the unification of the Pragya and Upaya according to Buddhist Tantra, and Shiva and Shakti according to Hindu Tantra. So like that, so Shiva and Shakti and Pragya and Upaya, it's the same. Only, so the different Mans, Madira. Madira is the nectar, the hormones that secretes from the pineal nectars, Usanis Kamala, that is called the Madira. So in Tantra, particularly it has been written Pittva, Pittva, Punar Pittva, Javat Patati Bhutale, Utthaya Cha Punar Pittva, Punar Janmana Vidyate. It doesn't mean that you go on drinking the alcohol. That says you go on drinking that nectar that comes from the hormones, that comes from nectar that comes from the Usanis Kamala. So all these things are there. So it's a literature is very vast. So when I started research, then I went to Kashmir also, Tantra Lok, 12 volumes, Swachanda Tantra, 12 volumes. That has been, a lot of books has been published from the Kashmir also. And the basic philosophical basis of Hindu Tantra is Kashmir Saivism. It is a very profound philosophy. And there is a difference between the Abhasvad of Kashmir Saivism and the Vivartavad of the Advaita Vedanta. So all these things I have dealt in my first book, Tantra is Mystic and Scientific Basis. When I was awarded the fellowship by Indian Institute Advanced Studies, Simla, I was working on the Buddhist Tantra, and I just have written about the Buddhist Tantra also. And at that time I visited, the Tibetan higher institute at Sarnath also, and discussed with some of, and I have had the fortune of organizing the Kal Chakra of His Holiness Dalai Lama in Bodh Gaya also. I was at that time General Secretary of a very big project, and we wanted to install 500 feet statue, 500 meter statue of Lord Buddha at Bodh Gaya. But somehow or other, due to the political climate was not proper, so we were not allowed at that time. Lalu Yadav was the chief minister, and it was a project of so more than $2 million, so it could not materialize. So I was the general secretary for almost, and I have had the fortune of meeting some of the great, the Buddhist monk, Tibetan monk, and particularly I would like to say something about lot of manuscripts is still lying at our Patna Museum, which has been Khudabak. So it has been collected and brought by Rahul Sanskritan. So lot of manuscripts are lying there. And particularly, so the 84 Siddhacharya, they have made a lot of contribution with Siddhacharya, 84 Siddhacharya. And that Siddha Sahitya literature has been published by Mahamopadhyaya Har Prasad Haldar, P.C. Bagchi, and of course Rahul Sanskritan also. They have made a lot of contribution in this subject. Because that all, if you go through the Siddhacharya, Siddha literature, it is all in, say, the Sandhya Bhasa. It's just like a bijak of the Kabir. So the real meaning, if you want to understand, you have to get initiation from some developed guru, some guru who have had the realization. Otherwise, there are a lot of fake guru these days. And then, so it's a very lot of sahitya. Because the Buddhist Tantra, when I started writing, so the book, some basic book has been written by, published by, that is called the Baroda Oriental series. So, Guh Samaj Tantra, which is considered to be the the Bible of the Buddhist Tantra, then Sadhanmala, that has also been published from there, Sadhanmala. So then Snail Grove translated Hebajra Tantra, and it has been published. So all these things are there. So in the Gui Samaj Tantra, there is a concept of 5 Buddhas, and they have 5 concepts also. So they are all symbolic. But when we talk of the real mandala of the saints, he has mentioned also, and I would like to congratulate Neeraj Kumar. He has done a wonderful work, there is no doubt about it. Wonderful work on Kal Chakra. So this Kal Chakra is the development of Vajrayana. Like Hindu Tantra, there are, say, Sakta Tantra, Saiva Tantra, and Vaishnava Tantra. So there is, so like that, in Buddhist Tantra also, Sahajyan, then Vajrayan, and then your Kal Chakra. So Kal Chakra is the most profound, say, concept. So different, you have to understand. He has written lot of things, the symbols, and it is full of myths and rituals. And Mircea Eliade has written a very valuable book on myth and rituals, and he was a great scholar, and he has written a book on yoga also, the immortality and freedom. And he has highlighted the Indian contribution, particularly the concept of witnessing entity, witnessing the Sakshi Cheta, Gyatrit Nibandhan. So for me, there is no difference between Hindu Tantra and Buddhist Tantra. Of course, Vinatosh Bhattacharya, he has also written a book. He was the director of the Oriental series of Baroda and Buddhist esotericism. And I have differed. He has stated that the Hindu Tantra has originated from Buddhist Tantra. No, that's a wrong concept. And then there is another PhD thesis which has been published by Mr. Das Gupta. He got awarded from Calcutta University. So that book has also been published by Calcutta University, Introduction to Buddhist Tantra, and he was awarded A.V. Das Gupta. So there is very, very vast literature on Buddhist Tantra, very vast. Lot of still is in manuscript forms. So I have just mentioned few manuscripts only. So there are Mahanirvan Tantra, Kularnav Tantra, particularly the Kularnav Tantra is very important. And George Arthur, or in the pseudonym Arthur Evelyn, he has done a lot of work on this subject. And I am really, I congratulate him because he has used some symbols, so this Sambhala, the real, it is a symbolic. The real Sambhala is a different real that exists only in your mind, not apart from that. You have to realize all the significations of these symbols. And these are the mystic, and it has the esoteric and mystic meaning and signification. So only you get initiated into Tantra, you won't be able to understand the real meaning and significance of these symbols. So because I have had some interest in all these things, so I have mentioned, just given introduction about this. And thank you very much. Thank you particularly our God Sahib is not there, so God Sahib invited me. And actually in these days I am not very much interested in participating in all these types of meetings and seminar and symposium, because I am deeply interested in understanding. I am in quest of my own identity and destiny. But anyway, because of my son, he talked to particularly the Gaur Sahab, R.C. Gaur Sahab, and then I have been asked to be present. Otherwise, I am thankful that I got the opportunity of meeting Rai Sahab. He is such a great scholar, great man. And so thank you all. I am just giving a brief introduction about Tantra. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We are indebted to you as well as your son, who thankfully spoke to Professor Gaur, and we have been really enlightened by your views, sir. I now request Professor Madhu Khanna, ma'am, who is Professor and former Head of Department, Center for Study of Comparative Religions and Civilizations, Jamia Millia University, and our very own IGNCS.
Yes, thank you very much. Namaskar to everybody. Respected Rai Bahadur Sahib ji, whom I'm meeting for the first time. I've read a lot of things that he has written, so I'm very honored to be here in his presence. Distinguished panelists, whom I know, and Neeraj ji, great work. And of course, all those who have assembled today for this very important book release function. The purpose of the book release function is a celebration. We have to celebrate a book and not just talk about it. Because when you see the size of this book, which runs more than 600 pages or even more, one knows how much hard work and deliberation has gone into putting it together. Not only of the author, but all the people who first wrote it. Think of the great scholar, who wrote the Vimala Prabha, who wrote the Tikas, who wrote the commentaries, who walked miles and miles. They were probably living in village huts, in mud huts, and writing on parched paper with pen and ink. But writing such great philosophy, how did it all happen? But India is probably the only country, one of the few countries where this has happened for thousands of years. And we tend to forget what a great civilization this is. So when Neeraj ji first came to me, and we've been meeting quite often, I've been a Tagore Fellow at the National Museum, and he used to hop across from his office in the afternoon to discuss and show me some of his manuscripts. And I must say that I was quite bewildered by the complexity, by the size, by the Sandha which as scholars of Tantra we all know, and also his total dedication, of actually putting it together and taking the challenge, taking this huge challenge of, putting together and writing about, translating a complex text, as well as, not only in one volume, but several volumes. So I want to first congratulate him for doing this great work. So my deep gratitude, of course, and heartfelt congratulations to Neeraj ji for bringing out such a complex but comprehensive study on a very, very seminal Buddhist text coming from the 11th century, on Kal Chakra, which translated as Wheel of Time or Cycle of Time, if you want to know the translation. Now, and of course, the book, as you can see, is huge, and it's a complex study, but I think I need to say a few words about it. Now, the Kal Chakra is one of the most remarkable Buddhist tantras belonging to what we understand as New Translation School of Vajrayana Buddhism. It is universally recognized as the highest Yoga Tantra that was offered to the Dharma king of Shambhala, whom we've just heard about Shambhala, for promoting the future age of Dharma or enlightenment. In other words, it's not a Tantra which just puts together what is what has come down to the great writer from the past, but he's also looking at the future, because he's talking of Kali Yuga and what enlightenment would mean in the coming Yuga. And in that sense, and it is a huge work of 60,000 granthas, which has been abbreviated over a period of time. The work provides an unparalleled insight into the nature of Dik and Kal. We have to understand, when we look at the philosophical tradition of India, Kal is not separated from Desh. Space and time go hand in hand. So when we talk of time, we always think of a sort of a contained something, space, within which time operates. Because time is an abstract concept, but time manifests as seasons, as the round of the planets. It manifests as planetary movements. We can also see time as we see a leaf falling. Time is also biological time. There's different views of time. When we look at our own bodies withering, that's also a form of time. So time, and also, of course, the daily round of the day and night, so time is a very important element. We may not understand it philosophically, but we all live it. We can't be out of it. As Immanuel Kant has said, that, space and time are the two specks through which we view the world. You can't remove those, because we are part of it. So time and space is ultimate reality. This is the center point of this particular, this great work. And time expounded by and of course, because this work was written in Shambhala, or it puts together the Tibetan idea of time, it is very much linked with the Tibetan calendar. Now, these cycles influence internal cycles of the subtle body and reverberate between alternative cycles. In explaining these rhythms, the text draws very heavily upon diverse disciplines, and that's why this is such an important text. It's not simply Kal Nirnay in that sense. It is a very, very important and complex text, because it puts together mathematical formula and equations, algorithms, planetary philosophy, predictive astrology, and technical details about cosmology, cosmography, geoscape. I mean, you just name it and you have it. And very, very esoteric knowledge systems, as well as structures of the macrocosm, what the macrocosm looks like. And of course, in the tantric tradition, whether Hindu or Buddhist, macro and the micro are always related. So it also speaks about the subtle body and how the macrocosmic system affects our entire psychophysical self through prana, through our body of energy. And that's where its subtlety comes. Now, the aim of Kal Chakra, of course, all these works, they have a prayojana. Why were they compiled? Were they just compiled to excite our imagination, or were they compiled for some greater reason? And you will see that in most of the Shastras in India, that the prayojana is always self-enlightenment. It is either salvation, or it is to attain some form of understanding of our own position in the universe. So the prayojana here is to immortalize the self, not by withdrawing from life, but by cognizing and living through the mechanics of the cycles of time, through the practice of pranic yoga, which is a micro link to the macrocosm. Now, there is so much going on in the text that it's not possible to look at every aspect, because it is really I would say a whole worldview in itself. And when, for instance, if it was a simple equation of Jiva and Paramatma, okay, here is the individual and this is the ultimate reality, it would be easy to explain. But what if the Jiva is described as Srishti itself? The paradigm, there will be a paradigm shift in understanding. There will be a total paradigm shift. If I were to say, okay, you're a Jiva, you're corporeal, you have a memory, you have mind, body, everything. But what if I say, no, you're not a jiva just alone, but you're Srishti itself, your creation itself. You are the world which you see. You're made of the stars and your elements, body elements are linked to the planets and the stars and the herbs and the plants and everything that's around you. If you're Srishti itself, the whole paradigm of the doctrine and philosophy changes. And that, to me, whether it's Hindu Tantra or Buddhist Tantra or whether this work, is the central message of Tantra. That you are the universe. Sarvam Sarv Atmakam. Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande. These are, normal things that we read in the text. So it's very unique in that sense. This Kal Chakra Tantra is a unique text because it talks about astrology, astronomy, planets, then also mathematical computations, and also shows you a method of how you identify with those rhythms. But of course, it's Rahasyavad in one sense, and anything which is Rahasya, we have to assume that it has to be taught by a competent guru. So, as we know, that tantric traditions are lineage-based. All the traditions in Tantra and all the religious cultures of India are lineage-based. There has to be a guru who transmits the knowledge. And within Tantra, it's not just knowledge, but transmits the power, transmits the Shakti path, Actually, this transference of some mystical and esoteric power, and the guru gives you enlightenment about the worldview and your own position in the universe. So I really want to congratulate Neeraj, who decodes the complex verses and offers his own exegesis on each of the concepts. Normally what happens in translation works that you have the Sanskrit verse and there's a translation, and very often there's no annotation. And as scholars we know that annotation is more difficult than the translation. Those who have translated Sanskrit works will know that. The annotation is more complex. So when you have to explain a word and its meaning, which meaning you will take. Each word in Sanskrit has so many meanings, like the term bhuta, which means element, it also means a demon. So which meaning will you take? So annotation means, looking at etymology as well as hermeneutics of the tradition and looking at earlier works, and as well as it requires a lot of comparison of sources. These are his analytical to clarify. So what he has done in this work is to clarify esoteric subjects. He provides mathematical equations, algorithms, diagrams of planetary movements. Very often when we read Sanskrit literature, everything is given in metaphorical language. So for instance, I would say if you talk about moon cycles or tithis, it'll just say Shodashi or something, Shodashi just means 16 or whatever, there'll be metaphors describing. So one has to know those metaphors because it's a totally different literature and language through which literature has been constructed. And I think it takes a while to understand those things, and he has understood all those aspects very competently. So the author has ably scrutinized all aspects of the concepts. He provides an excellent interpretation to the scope and depth of the concepts. He provides he also provides hermeneutical interpretations of the Kalacakra tradition. He has done full justice to the complexity of the text. The work unquestionably makes a major contribution to the almost lost tradition of Kal Chakra yarn. And Neeraj really needs to be celebrated, and he deserves to be congratulated for his remarkable contribution. So thank you, Neeraj. You've done a great service. Now, but I don't want to stop here. I want to just take a few more minutes because I think I'd like to share some of my ideas. Now, I am a scholar of Hindu Tantra. So when I received this book from him and after my talks, I began to speculate as to how close do the concepts match. And to my surprise, as Singhji had just been talking about that there are many parallels. There are many parallels that you find in between the Buddhist and the Hindu tantras. In fact, there's a wonderful cross-fertilization of ideas that has taken place. Now, I just wanted to share that on the whole concept of Kalacakra. In the Hindu tradition, in the Hindu Shakta tradition, for instance, the concept of Kalachakra has some affinities with the concept of 15 moon divinities called Tithi Nityas in the tradition of goddess Lalita Tripur Sundari. And the major texts which I have been deciphering for a while, and thank you Nidhi for your book, because many things I could not decipher when I read Tantra Raja Tantra, and now I see it's all very clearly put. So because the mathematical computations between yugas and pranavayu and breath cycles, are very similar in both the traditions. So you have similar ideas found in Hindu tantras as well. Then another thing which really excited my imagination, because I work on Sanskrit texts, on Shakta tantras mainly, Kal Chakra, Tripur Sundari, Durga and Dasha Mahavidyas, etc., that the significance of, because Kal Chakra Tantra is a mother tantra, very nicely put in the introduction of Nidhi. And as a mother tantra, of course, it will talk about goddesses, the feminine divinities. So there is a lot of material on goddesses, and particularly Tara. I think she is somehow so central to the thing, which is found both in Hindu and Buddhist tantras. And then there's 12 layers of female divinities, 81 yoginis, 64 yoginis, and Dakini, who's been given such a philosophical interpretation here. We always thought that Dakini is, when you read some English books, the Dakini was more like a diviness, very ferocious kind of deity. But here she is elevated to a great degree. And when I looked at your whole section on Tara, I just loved it, because I have done extensive work on Goddess Tara in my Dasha Mahavidya book. And now Tara, as we all know, Tara is associated with the whole Himalayan range, In fact, the Tara is originally a Buddhist deity, as we see it, as I see it, and then how it was taken over by the Hindu tantras. So she is believed to have come from Mahachina, Great China, and her dhyana is found in Sadhanmala, that's date is 1165 AD. And a near identical dhyana describing the image of goddess is found now in Bengal tantras, which is Brahmanand's Tara Rahasya and Tantra Sara of Krishna and Agam Vagish, etc. But what is interesting is that the Hindu tantric sources, there is a constant affiliation of the Buddhist Tara. And also the Chinese method of worship, Chinachar. So how did it all happen? It happened, as your book very rightly says, that Kalacakra Tantra comes from the eastern coast. It is linked with the eastern coast. So I got another golden key out of your book, because the east is very important when we think of tantras. We forget, we only think of the Himalayan ranges, that from Bhutan, Nepal, this. But the east, my God, you take the whole of Bengal and then coming down to Orissa, which is the state of our new president, and that whole is one cultural complex, touching to the, going up to Bihar, what a great, and Jharkhand, So that forms one tantric belt, one tantric circle, I would say. And so this Kal Chakra Tantra was able to somehow make us understand that belt better. So, the traditional region of Tara worship extends from Vindhya mountains to China. And before her Hindu affiliation as a major deity to the Mahayana pantheon, Tara was most probably an indigenous tribal deity who commanded special worship in the northern Himalaya belt in countries such as Nepal, Bhutan, Sikkim, Tibet, China, Mongolia, up to Indochina. The pan-Himalayan indigenous religions also played a major role in the formation of the Hindu and Buddhist cultures. Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time on Goddess Tara, but I just want to say that she is described in Hindu sources as Hunkar Bij Udbhava. What you give, Om Tare Tu Tare Ture Tantra, that is found in elaborately in Hindu sources. Okay, her emergence through the bija. Then we have also reference to what is even more interesting when you look at her ritual, Vajra Udaka. Again, the term Vajra comes. Vajra Pushpam, when you make an offering. And Hunkara Bij Udbhava, which is the Bija mantra Hum. So what I'm trying to say is that in all the Padhatis of later period, Tara is a Buddhist goddess, but then she is adapted and adopted by the Hindu fold. Okay, then another thing that excited me was, of course, Peeth Nirnaya, which you describe the kshetras, the pithas, the sacred centers, the three main sacred centers in the Shakta tradition. Hindu Shakta tradition, of course, are Kamarup, Purnagiri, Jalandhar, Purnagiri, and Uddayan. And so Uddayan, again, those form a very important part in the Buddhist culture as well. So I don't know whether Uddayan is really a place in Swat Valley or South India, as Lokesh Chandraji has written, but I certainly know that for every pujak, Uddayan, Kamrup, of course, is Assam, Kamakhya is very easy. Purnagiri, we don't know where it is, but it makes a triangle. Purnagiri triangle. And Udyan is in the center. So we don't know, maybe these are really places of our imagination like Shangri-La and we don't know where is the real Udyan. Then my last point is, this constant mention of concept of Bindu, Visarga, Bija, Nada, Anhat. Now these are totally tantric traditions, you have a huge literature coming on these issues, the Sharda Tilaka Tantra and the Hindu Tantras and Kamakala Vilas and all the wonderful tantras that evolved in Kashmir. So what I'm trying to say is that there is a cross-fertilization, but there is a difference also. We have to know the differences and we also have to know the similarities. We should not stress the similarities so much that there is no difference, or the difference is so great that they don't belong to a common pool. So my question for the scholars is, possibly these were common pools, common ideas, which were taken up by different lineages and then reconfigured in their own way. So thank you for this, for inviting me. It's been a great experience for me to discover this great scholar, and we hope that we will be receiving more and more books from him and have more and more of such deliberations. Thank you very much. Thank you, IGNCA, my old family. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was really enlightening. And I now request Professor Shashi Balaji, Dean Bharatiya Vidya Bhavan Center for Indology, to share her views.
Namaskar. When I received the book, I was really surprised. My connection with Kal Chakra, it goes back to the time when I was a student and Dr. Lokesh Chandra had published Kalacakra Tantra. That time I knew nothing. What is Kal Chakra? What does it mean and all this? And recently I was in Mongolia and I could offer my prayers to the Kal Chakra Mandala there in Mongolia in the monastery of Gandhi Monastery. And one thing I would like to tell you is that they have special wooden slabs because the country is so cold. So they have special wooden slabs to do the Sashtanga Pranam. So Kal Chakra people go there and do Sashtanga Pranam there. So, and I'm not an expert of Tantra, but I would say that like a hungry pilgrim on the path of the Acharyas, how they dedicated their lives for spreading the Indian Dharma. People now do not want to use these words, Dharma. Actually, this is Dharma, and wherever I go, I just ask the people that what are the reasons why there is a decline in so many areas, so many spheres of our life. because dharma is dying, dharma is fading. So anyway, I'm not going into the details. First of all, I request you all to please give a big applaud to Neeraj ji. It's an amazing work. We have seen, as Madhuji said, it's not just a translation, because what people normally do is just translate the text. Yes, of course, it's a big contribution, because Sanskrit text, to translate a Sanskrit text is not an easy task. Then publication is also equally important and difficult also and challenging also. I know it very well. It is, the Kal Chakra Tantra is the most fascinating work, a seminal text, and very challenging to work on it. And it is not limited to just a translation of 1947 verses in Sanskrit, but it gives a detailed commentary from a modern perspective so that the youth of the country can understand. What is dharma? What are these texts? हम लोग उसको religion के नाम पर, we just ignore these things. We should bring them. We should bring the Kal Chakra Tantra into our school education system somewhere, somehow. What is Kal Chakra Tantra? How scientific it is. So it is not just a text of spirituality कि भाई when we grow old, ठीक है अब हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते तो we just sit and just कोई meditation कर रहे हैं. No, it's science. Spirituality, how much science is there in our spiritual texts has to be understood, has to be explored, because people like us who are just Sanskrit scholars, and we understand, okay, as Neeraj ji said, I'm not a Sanskritist, I'm not a Buddhist practitioner, I'm not this, I'm not that. This is why he could do that. Otherwise, you cannot decode. All the scholars these days, because government is supporting Indian knowledge system, so I am connected with a number of people who are decoding Vedic Sanskrit texts, mantras, like just a few days ago I received a small book on Purusha Sukta, how science is there. How our Srishti Vigyan is different from the others. So then he has added visuals. Amazing. I really was turning the pages. I wanted to go through the whole of the book, but it is not possible to go through it at one, and it is not a novel. So one has to just give a lot of time to understand, to read, not just read, but to internalize the philosophy of it and also the science behind it. So we Indians, unfortunately, have forgotten this knowledge. How many Indians do really know about Kal Chakra Tantra? And we have lost faith in them, in all these texts. So, with this kind of work, definitely they will be inspired. And then something amazing is introduction running into 225 pages. It's a book itself. People sometimes just write 50-60 pages and say कि हमने ग्रंथ लिख दिया. 225 pages of introduction. It is not just introduction. It's a detail. It gives a real insight into the book. People, yes, we have faith, and we say, tradition says that Kal Chakra Tantra was revealed by the Buddha in the stupa of Dhanyakataka. And as earlier panelists said, that Suchandra went to Shambhala, wrote down the revelation, compiled the Tantra into 12,000 stanzas, wrote a long exposition, propagated and built a stupa for Kal Chakra Tantra. We were just discussing what is the meaning of Shambhala. Shambhala is a visionary paradise, a state of existence. As you said, कि वहाँ लड्डू है, पूरी है, and all these things. What does it mean? Because what happened? आपने मधुजी, you said about prayojana. Every text has its prayojan. कोई भी मूर्ति, कोई भी टेक्स्ट, कुछ भी काम ये मनुष्य बिना स्वार्थ के नहीं करता, उसमें कोई ना कोई प्रयोजन होता है. यही कारण है, दिस इज द मेन रीजन व्हाई यू हैव द लार्जेस्ट नंबर ऑफ द statues of goddess Durga when there were invasions, Islamic invasions in Bengal. Now, I would just say a few words about it, that when Kalacakra Tantra was written, it was a time of assassination of dharma, of millenarian culture. The human mind was disturbed by watching the monasteries being destroyed. The monks were being slain. There was a whole genocide. Statues were smote, monks were slew, even trees were cut. Sacred complexes were just destroyed. So when something of this kind happens, then what do we need? We need a hope. We need a hope in future. So Kal Chakra, Kala is like a chakra, like a wheel. Chakrar panktir gacchati bhagya pankti, as people say. So Kal is like a chakra. So it gave dream to the humanity. It wished reincarnation of eternity. Trampled dreams could become incredible vitality. Kalacakra Tantra was created as a synthesis to ward off threats and also so that people could have faith in life. Although I'm going slightly away from this topic, but I wanted to tell you that there is a beautiful Indonesian manuscript of Smaradhana. You all know the story of Smaradhana, when Lord Kamdeva is just burned down and Rati Devi, she is crying. Vilap kar rahi hai. When she is crying, then the tears roll down only from the one eye, and from the other she keeps smiling. The tears of her rolling down from her eyes are compared to 4 months of monsoon Chaturmasya. And with the other eye, she keeps smiling because the world has to go on. We need a hope at this kind of a situation. A panpsychic worldview where everything is alive and conscious, because everything was there was death everywhere, from atoms to biological beings, from emptiness to cosmic beings. So I see the author foresees how Kalacakra philosophy can become a proto-template of transcendence of man-machine integrated future. So he has used such beautiful terms for expressing. I'm not going into the details what happened when, but Shambhala, Tibetans different countries have placed Shambhala in different areas. Even in India, we have Sambhal and Shamli, places like this. We do not have the history of these Sambhal and Shamli, and we do not know, I do not know how many other such places with corrupt names are there. But according to the Tibetans, they placed Shambhala near Sita River. That is the Sir River in Central Asia. And there was a question raised about Udyan and Udyan. Udyan and Udyan, both of them exist. One is Udyan is in the northwest and Udyan is in the south. So it's near Kanchipuram. As I understand it with the modern researchers. King Manjushri Kirti condensed it into a shorter version, into 1047 stanzas, and his successor Kulika Pundarika wrote the great commentary that we were talking about, Vimalaprabha, and the last commentary is by Master Mifan in the 19th century. So I want to, when I was just not exactly reading the whole of the text, but it was so fascinating that I want to read everything. It was not possible, but still, what I want to just highlight a few points here, that Kalachakra, how Kala governs the individual and the cosmic body. As you said, Yat Pinde Tat Brahmande. And people have to understand it. Whatever exists outside, whatever exists in the cosmos, that is inside me. I am a tiny particle of the cosmos. So, internalization and also looking deep into oneself, I think will solve many of our problems. We are talking about Tara. When I read about Tara in this book, the first question that came into my mind, yes, Tara was popular in Bengal area, and Acharya Atisha, who went to Tibet and who also propagated Kalacakra Tantra, and when he went to Tibet, before that, Tara was his tutelary deity, and before going to Tibet, he had gone to Indonesia, and then I found, yes, you have written that information also given, that Tara cult, worship of Tara already existed in Indonesia, and you talked about Chandi Tara and Kalasan. I have been to all these places, and it was amazing to see that when Atisha went there, before that there was no Tara worship was popular in Tibet. It happened only after Atisha. So, and you have written that human beings are autopoietic machines. And I must underline, a junction makes things function. Really attractive. A complex machine of switch off for drops, winds and nadis. So, as Professor said about Madira, because we have to understand different meanings. Madira is not just what we think today. There are so many meanings of each word that have changed. So these days I am working on a multi-volume dictionary by Dr. Raghuveera, and I am publishing it from Bharati Vidya Bhavan. I am halfway, and there I am really enjoying it. Looking at different meanings of the words, how shades change. Like in Rig Veda, the word Parvata is for height, not for mountain. And there is another word for height in Rig Veda itself, that is Pravata. And Pravata should be earlier than Parvata. So it's amazing. So how life is regenerated, maintained and self-organized. This is the main, I think, it's one of the themes of Kal Chakra Tantra when it was written. You have beautifully compared Aryabhata's influence on Kalacakra Tantra, comparison, the tables of Aryabhat, the value of Jaya and the modern value. I think it should come somewhere. Maybe our president of IGNCA, maybe from IGNCA, you can push it forward that these things can go into the education system, algorithms and enumeration of concepts. There are shortcut algebraic derivatives and enumeration of concepts. They make it so clear. Artificial intelligence on page 21, I was really surprised to see that. Consciousness, measuring it, the power it has, how the integrated information theory, IIT, posits it. So it all has to go to our education system. So its introduction to the Mongol court, because the Sakya Lamas were the gurus. And they took these things, they took the Buddhist philosophy, they took all the Sanskrit texts that were translated into Tibetan, and they introduced Kal Chakra Tantra also to the royal court as gurus, Pakspa Lama. Kublai Khan was also interested in it, and we all Indians know about Alexander the Great because he built a huge empire, but people do not, our students are not told that he was great, he could win the wars until he had to fight with the Indians. There are many reasons, I am not going into the details, but Kublai Khan had Genghis Khan, Kublai Khan, we should talk about them also, how huge were the empires and what kind of dharmic Dharma was established by them. The people go to Great Wall of China, but how many do really know that on the Great Wall of China, Sanskrit mantra of Ushnish Vijaya Dharani? Professor, you talked about Ushnish Padma. So Ushnish Vijaya Dharani is the mantra, Sanskrit mantra that was written in 1333 and still exists there on the Great Wall of China in 6 scripts, but nobody talks about it. So, Tibetan history, it's amazing that Tibetans have written their history according to the Kal Chakra astronomy. Look at the faith of the people. So, how barbaric forces coming from Mecca. You have mentioned it in the verse 153 of Patal 1, followed the conquest, the demolition of the Sun Temple of Sindh and conversion of the Amirs. Mostly in India, we Indians, our forefathers, have not written much about history. We are very weak. We have to rely on the sources that are Greek, or they can be Mughals, or they can be Chinese, or any other sources we use. Section of alchemy, processing mercury. Processing mercury was a great science in India. Qingxi Huangdi, the most powerful Chinese emperor, died of swelling mercury. Because I think the idea had reached, but not the how to process it. Mercury हम लोग तो उसकी भस्म बनाते हैं. So that भस्म बनाने का तो they did not have the technology, but he died because of that. Swabhavas of acids, base, salts, metals, semi-metals, poison, semi-poison, and so on. So it's so amazing that how much science is there. So in these books on science, these things should be added. So you have given references to Tanjore. I have recently, just last year, I have published the catalogue of Tanjore, and you have given a list of Kalacakra Tantra texts in Tanjore. So it was lying half done for around more than 45 years. So now I could complete it, add it, and just published it. So I was really happy to see that list, and how Nicholas Riorik and all these people you talked about. So I'm not going into the details of that. But one thing, when you were talking about the 84 Siddhas, I was so shocked to see a book by a Western author who has written a book on Siddhas, and he has identified them as madmen because they don't understand. The title of the book is Madmen. Can you imagine this? And nobody from India just raised the voice. How can you call a Siddha a madman? So transmission, then His Holiness Dalai Lama and many others, they have been regularly organizing the ceremonies. Abhishek, initiation is very important, and a person can really understand a philosophy, the power of a text, power of philosophy, power of spirituality only after getting Diksha or Abhishek and all these things. Earliest printed texts of this Kal Chakra Tantra, there are many xylographed editions, but the earliest printed text is discovered from Korea. That was printed in 1377. The earliest abridged edition is in Cambridge. Kanjur and Tanjore both have this. Kanjur has both the original and the Vimal Prabhatika. It's not a normal practice that in Kanjur and Tanjore you have both. In Kanjur, especially in Kanjur, you have both. This is very important. So we have, it's a time, as you said, it's a celebration. So it's a celebration, and also Neeraj ji, we really our really heartfelt congratulations to you, and also we have to pay our gratitude to the earlier scholars who kept the torch burning, like Dr. Raghuvira, like Dr. Rahul Sankrityayan, Tucci, and Chomakaroshi, as you said, and Dr. Lukesh Chandra. We all know him, how much work has he done to preserve them. And then being an expert on mandalas, I would say that the Kal Chakra pantheon consists of 722 deities. There are layers of goddesses. Layers of goddesses, why I'm saying, because of the urja, because of the energy, because of the shakti. People normally in many countries, they ask, how this 4 face is not possible, more than 2 arms is not possible. भगवान जो हैं हम लोगों ने, भगवान is not a व्यक्ति, he is a shakti, and we portray Bhagwan, a shakti, as a vyakti. So we have to tell these people who make fun of all this. So how Vishwamata is surrounded by 36 female deities in the circular mandala, and the graphics you have made are really very good. Astronomical calculations according to the Kal Chakra Tantra, the star atlas. There is a star atlas that is discovered from Dunhuang caves in China. Dunhuang is the most famous, although there are so many cave complexes in China, preserving we can't measure it, we can't calculate it, what kind of treasure is preserved. And even after so much of destruction, there is a lot in China. I'm talking about Dunhuang caves. Only in one cave complex, 25 kilometers of wall surface is covered by the paintings portraying philosophy of different Buddhist texts. So, history of development of the Tara cult, you have written very well on page 195. Vikramshila became a flag bearer on Tantra teachings and propagation of practice of Goddess Tara. Yes, we accept. But what is the condition now today of Vikramshila? So I think our country should pay more attention to these glorious centers, the world famous centers of education, of knowledge, of spreading the knowledge, of maintaining peace and harmony in the world. Because they are all, when they were destroyed, it's okay, it was a time when they were destroyed, we couldn't protect them. But now it is time to rebuild them. They are sacred places. I have discussed with many on many such occasions that please don't call these centers of pilgrimage as centers of tourism. It is all these monasteries, temples, whatever was sacred is sacred forever. And people who come as tourists from all over the world to visit these places, they come as pilgrims. Please maintain the sanctity, the sacredness. Don't let people wearing shoes tapping on the statues. They were sacred. They are still sacred. We cannot do that. We should not be allowed to do that. So there should be some kind of, I think, this is what I feel. I feel very sad when I go to these places that how people can dare to do that. Sorry to say so, but it is. They are centers of pilgrimage, not just. Don't go just as tourists. So spread of Swarodaya and the Yogini cult you have written, and the appendices added at the end. They have a lot of information, and it makes people like us it makes us simple and easy to understand. So I hope all this, whatever you have done, the great work, really a great work, really a big hand for him. And thank you all. I thank Dr. God to give me a chance to, although I'm not an expert again of Tantra, but as a passionate pilgrim, I'm just exploring, trying to explore and bring to the public, because we have lost the knowledge, we have lost the faith, we have lost the identity, and India is not just a piece of land. It has a soul, and that soul is dharma. And we have to protect it. Only then India can be glorious, India can be Vishwaguru, whatever we want to make it. This is our real strength. So please, with these words, I thank you all. Thank you all who have joined us on this very special occasion, because it is not just a simple text, a simple book, but it's really an in-depth study, and to learn from it, to understand from it, is really a challenge. So thank you once again. Thank you, Dr. God.
इस सत्र के सभाध्यक्ष तथा इंदिरा गांधी राष्ट्रीय कला केंद्र न्यास के माननीय अध्यक्ष महोदय श्री राम बहादुर राय जी से अध्यक्षीय उद्बोधन के लिए मैं आमंत्रण देता हूँ।
मैं नीरज जी को दोहरी बधाई देता हूँ। विद्वान वक्ताओं ने, जैसे प्रोफेसर एल.पी. सिंह जी ने, मधु खन्ना जी ने, शशि बालाजी ने, और शुरू में प्रोफेसर रमेश गौड़ जी ने इस पुस्तक के बारे में बताया है आपको। मैं एक घटना से अपनी बात शुरू करना चाहता हूँ, तो समझ में आएगा कि मैंने दोहरी बधाई क्यों दी। एक बिहार के चीफ सेक्रेटरी रिटायर हुए थे, मेरे मित्र भी थे, मैं उनके यहाँ अक्सर जाता था। एक दिन जब मैं उनके घर गया तो वो और उनकी पत्नी दोनों आपस में तकरार कर रहे थे। झगड़ा नहीं कर रहे थे, तकरार कर रहे थे। और उनकी पत्नी पूछ रही थी कि तुम जो किताब लिख रहे हो उसकी साइज क्या है। तो उन्होंने अपनी पत्नी से पूछा कि इसका क्या मतलब है। तो उसने कहा कि उनकी पत्नी ने कहा कि मेरे घर में कबाड़ की जगह कम है, इसलिए मैं चाहती हूँ कि बता दो कि उसकी साइज़ क्या रहेगी, ताकि उसके लिए हम जगह बना दें। एक मोटा ग्रंथ नीरज जी ने बनाया है, और मैंने वो दोहरी बधाई इसलिए दी कि इनकी पत्नी यहाँ मौजूद है, और इन दोनों को साथ रहते मैंने देखा है। इन्होंने नीरज को घर से निकाला नहीं, इसलिए मैंने पहली बधाई दी, और इस ग्रंथ को स्वीकार किया, इनके घर में जगह दी, इसके लिए दूसरी बधाई मैं देना चाहता हूँ। और ये दरअसल जहाँ ये एकेडमिक काम है, जिसके बारे में विद्वान वक्ताओं ने मुझसे पहले बताया भी है, उससे ज़्यादा दरअसल मैं उसको कहूँगा कि नालंदा ट्रेडिशन को जीवित रखने के लिए, या नालंदा परंपरा को फिर से हमारे दिमाग में, हमारे जेहन में, हमारे करिकुलम में, यानी सिलेबस में लाने के लिए दरअसल नीरज जी ने ये ग्रंथ लिखा है। और मुझे याद है, मैं समझता हूँ कि 10-15 साल हो गया होगा, जब नालंदा विश्वविद्यालय की स्थापना हुई थी, और उस विश्वविद्यालय के नाम के साथ एक तरह से अत्याचार हो रहा था। मनमोहन सिंह की सरकार थी, उनकी बेटी की एक दोस्त उसकी वाइस चांसलर बनाई गई थी, और दिल्ली से वो विश्वविद्यालय चलाया जा रहा था, जहाँ कुछ भी नहीं था नालंदा में। जब ये घटना मालूम हुई तो नीरज जी एक दिन मेरे पास आए, और उन्होंने वहाँ की सारी बातें बताई। मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि उसी दौरान इन्होंने एक किताब लिखी। आप जब इस पुस्तक के आखिरी पेज पर जाएंगे, बैक कवर पर, तो उसमें उस किताब का उल्लेख भी है, एराइज एशिया। और एराइज एशिया भी उसी तरह की पुस्तक है, जिसमें एक अवधारणा है कि कैसे एशियाई एकता पैदा हो सकती है। और तब मुझे याद है कि शीला दीक्षित ने एक एशियाई देशों की कॉन्फ्रेंस बुलाई थी और उसमें हम सब लोग गए थे। हमने एक सवाल भी शीला दीक्षित से पूछा था, तो किसी ने शायद शीला दीक्षित को कहा कि इनको आप सवाल पूछने मत दीजिए, तो शीला दीक्षित ने कहा कि आप राम बहादुर राय को नहीं जानते, वो ठीक सवाल पूछ रहे हैं। वास्तव में ये जो नालंदा परंपरा है, मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि नालंदा परंपरा में बौद्ध और भारत की सारी परंपरा एक स्टेज पर जाकर मिल जाती है। ये पुस्तक आप पढ़ेंगे या तो आप पाएंगे, और इन्होंने लिखा भी है कि ये संश्लेषण है। ये पहली पुस्तक है जो दरअसल चीज़ों को मिला करके और एक नई धारा पैदा करने की कोशिश हो रही है इसमें। इसलिए, और तंत्र का जो शाब्दिक अर्थ है, तंत्र की जो आप लोगों ने व्याख्या की है वो अपनी जगह ठीक है, लेकिन तंत्र साधारण आदमी के लिए मंत्र और तंत्र, तो तंत्र बहुत उसका साधारण सा अर्थ है जिसको हमको समझना चाहिए। तंत्र एक विधि है और कुछ नहीं है। आपको अगर कोई चीज़ ज़मीन पर उतारनी है या आपको कुछ अपने जीवन में पाना है, तो उसकी जो विधि है वो तंत्र में है, उसी को तंत्र कहते हैं। जैसे मान लीजिए जब हम लोग बोलचाल में कहते हैं कि प्रशासन तंत्र, इसका मतलब एक जंजाल है अफसरों का, वो प्रशासन तंत्र है। उसी तरह से जो हमारे यहाँ शक्ति पूजा के माध्यम हैं, जैसे मान लीजिए आप चले जाइए दतिया के आज भी संग्रहालय में या पुस्तकालय में तंत्र पर जितनी सामग्री है उतनी मुझे नहीं लगता कि और कहीं पर है। उसका संरक्षण हो रहा है नहीं हो रहा है अलग विषय है। और उसी तरह से दतिया के तंत्र विद्या पर वो तारापंथ का केंद्र है। हमारे एक मित्र हैं जो तारापंथ के उपासक हैं, अक्सर मैं उनसे बातचीत भी करता हूँ। तो ये जो तंत्र के में जो विकृतियाँ आई हैं हम उसमें नहीं जाएंगे, लेकिन तंत्र की जो संस्कृति है वह संस्कृति वास्तव में हमारे यहाँ, जैसे प्रोफेसर LP सिंह जी ने कहा कि मैं आजकल कहीं जाता नहीं हूँ, किसी सेमिनार वगैरह में भाग नहीं लेता, और उसका कारण भी बताया उन्होंने कि मैं इसलिए ऐसा कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि मैं स्वयं कौन हूँ इसकी खोज में लगा हूँ। अब थोड़ी देर में आपने ये खोज शुरू की है। दरअसल ज़रूरत यह है कि ये जो स्कूल के बच्चे हैं उनसे ही ये शुरू होना चाहिए कि मैं कौन हूँ, और ये मैं कौन हूँ ये बहुत व्यापक इसका संदर्भ है। और ये जो काल चक्र है यह भी आपको वहीं पहुँचाता है, उस प्रश्न के सामने आपको खड़ा कर देता है कि हम मनुष्य के रूप में कौन हैं, एक समाज के रूप में कौन हैं, हम एक देश के रूप में कौन हैं, हम एक मनुष्यता के रूप में कौन हैं। और मुझे काल चक्र का विद्या के रूप में नहीं परंतु काल चक्र को प्रतीक के रूप में मैंने पहली बार देखा 80-81 में। और घटना ये थी कि उस समय के राष्ट्रपति नीलम संजीव रेड्डी अपने राष्ट्रपति कार्यकाल में, जैसे अभी रामनाथ कोविंद जी अपने राष्ट्रपति कार्यकाल में, इनका सपना था कि अयोध्या हो आए ये। उसी तरह से नीलम संजीव रेड्डी का सपना था कि अरुणाचल में जो तवांग मोनेस्ट्री है उसको देखें, वहाँ जाएं। और जब वो जाने की कोशिश करते थे तो तेजपुर तक पहुँचते थे, और तेजपुर से जो हेलीकॉप्टर उनको लेकर के तवांग जा रहा होता था वो बोमडिला से फिर वापस आ जाता था, क्योंकि बोमडिला और तवांग के बीच की जो जगह थी वहाँ पायलट को बता दिया जाता था कि मौसम बहुत ख़राब हो गया है। 3 बार ऐसा हुआ, 4 बार ऐसा हुआ, लेकिन अंततः 5वीं बार वो पहुँचे। और जब वो पहुँचे तो मैं भी पहुँचा। मैं वैसे हर बार पहुँचता था, लेकिन 5वीं बार भी पहुँचा। और तवांग मोनेस्ट्री को आप अगर देखेंगे आज भी, तो तवांग मोनेस्ट्री में जो सबसे अद्भुत चीज़ है वो काल चक्र है। और काल चक्र वो साक्षात है। तो उस काल चक्र का दर्शन और उस काल चक्र को घुमाना, पूरा आप घुमा दें तो उसके बाद आप पाएंगे कि आपने मोक्ष को प्राप्त कर लिया। और यही वहाँ जो लोग जाते हैं वो दरअसल इसलिए ही जाते हैं। वहाँ की और कथाएं हैं कि दलाई लामा माने 14वें दलाई लामा कहाँ पैदा हुए, उसी के आसपास में पैदा हुए। अगले दलाई लामा कहाँ पैदा होंगे, ये सब भी है उसमें। और जैसे इसमें अपने इंट्रोडक्शन में भी और पेज नंबर 215 पर भी नीरज जी ने एक तो संभाला का कई लोगों ने जिक्र किया है, मैं भी करना चाहता हूँ। उसकी वजह यह है कि अगर आप स्वर्ग कहाँ है और हिमालय के आसपास में कहाँ पर है, इस पर आप साहित्य खोजें, किताबें खोजें, तो आपको अनगिनत किताबें मिल जाएंगी। और ख़ास करके बौद्ध साहित्य में तो बहुत किताबें हैं जो ये बताती हैं कि ये वो जगह है जहाँ पर आप अगर पहुँचे तो अपने आप सिद्ध अवस्था में पहुँच जाते हैं। अच्छा, वो जो जगह है वो इतनी बर्फीली है कि वहाँ पहुँचने के बाद जैसे युधिष्ठिर गलते चले गए, और जो लोग भी वहाँ पहुँचते हैं वो पहुँच पाते हैं या नहीं पहुँच पाते, वो जो कल्पना की जगह है वो संभाला है। अब आसपास के पेड़ कट गए हैं, केदारनाथ तक लोग जा सकते हैं। केदारनाथ के पार जाने की अभी या एवरेस्ट के उस पार जाने की कोई विधि नहीं निकली है। तो जो कल्पना की जगह है वो संभाला है, लेकिन दरअसल मनुष्य की जो सबसे और मनुष्य और दूसरे जीवों में जो बड़ा फर्क होता है वो यही है कि दूसरे कल्पना नहीं कर सकते, मनुष्य कल्पना कर सकता है। और इसलिए कालचक्र का तंत्र और कुछ नहीं है कल्पना की एक ऐसी उड़ान है जो मनुष्य जहाँ पहुँचना चाहता है उसकी कल्पना करता है और उसकी विधियाँ खोजता है। ये बहुत अच्छा होगा कि इस ग्रंथ के लिए कोई हम अपने बीच में है या नहीं, डीके पब्लिशर्स के हमारे मित्र उस तरह के आदमी खोज सकेंगे या नहीं मैं नहीं जानता, लेकिन इसको सुबोध भाषा में विद्वानों के लिए ये ठीक है, लेकिन नई पीढ़ी इस काल चक्र से परिचित हो उसके लिए जरूरी है किसी ओशो की तलाश। मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूँ क्योंकि पिछले दिनों चौखंबा संस्कृत प्रकाशन से एक छोटी सी की पुस्तक बलभद्र उपाध्याय की भैरव तंत्र पर है और मैंने उसको पढ़ा। फिर मैंने रमेश जी से कहा कि भैरव तंत्र पर ओशो के प्रवचन हैं, आप ज़रा खोजिए कहाँ मिलेगा, क्योंकि मैं समझता था कि संभवतः ये मैं जाना नहीं चाहता था जहाँ ओशो के प्रकाशन है वहाँ, और मालूम हुआ कि हिंद पॉकेट बुक्स को पेंगुइन ने ले लिया है, तो मैंने रमेश जी की मदद ली और पुस्तकें मंगवाई। अब बलभद्र उपाध्याय का जो भैरव तंत्र है वो किसी के पल्ले नहीं पड़ेगा, लेकिन 5 खंडों में ओशो ने भैरव तंत्र को जिस तरह से समझाया है उसको आप समझें तो काल चक्र को समझने में आपको मदद मिलेगी। और भैरव तंत्र है क्या? शिव पार्वती से को कुछ बता रहे हैं, साधना की पद्धति बता रहे हैं, और पार्वती जब एक श्लोक शिव कहते हैं तो पार्वती कहते हैं कि मुझे समझ में नहीं आया, तो वो दूसरा कहते हैं, और इस तरह से 112 बार कहते हैं, और 112वें बार जा कर के पार्वती कहते हैं कि मुझे समझ में आ गया। ये काल चक्र भी आपको 112 बार पढ़ना पड़ेगा, तब आप शायद कह सकें कि हाँ अब हमको समझ में आ गया। लेकिन दरअसल इसकी विशेषता यह नहीं है कि इन्होंने काल चक्र लिखा। मैं नीरज जी को बधाई देकर अपनी बात पूरी इस बात के लिए करता हूँ कि ये इन्होंने शुरू में कहा कि आज मेरी माता का जन्मदिन है, तो जैसे मैंने इनको दोहरी बधाई शुरू में दी, मैं इनको कहूँगा कि इनकी 2 माताओं का आज जन्मदिन है। एक जिन माता ने उनको जन्म दिया था और एक माँ जिसके ये उपासक हैं, उस माँ के आशीर्वाद से ये दर्शक काल चक्र ग्रंथ आया है। मैं पुनः बधाई देकर अपनी बात पूरी करता हूँ।
धन्यवाद सर। With this we conclude today's event, and we are sincerely thankful to Param Shraddha Sri Ram Bahadur Rai ji. Chairman IGNCA Trust and also the chairperson of this session. Dr. Sachidanand Joshi ji, Member Secretary IGNCA, for constantly guiding us and inspiring us to organize such programs time and again. We are grateful to the distinguished speakers, Professor L.P. Singh, Professor Madhu Khanna, Professor Shashi Bala. We are indebted to Professor Kashinath Nyopane for his video message. His presence in the spirit is, of course, acknowledged.
विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन् आत्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये पुरो भवतु तारिणी सकलदुःखसंहारिणी महाकलुषदारिणी निगमशीर्षसञ्चारिणी अभीष्टफलकारिणी शमनजातभिवारिणी परात्मसुविहारिणी सकललोकसंधारिणी। इस कार्यक्रम के अध्यक्ष श्री राम बहादुर राय जी, प्रोफेसर शशि बालाजी, प्रोफेसर एल.पी. सिंह जी, प्रोफेसर रमेश चंद्र गौर जी, प्रोफेसर मधु खन्ना जी, श्री नीरज कुमार जी, श्री सुशील मित्तल जी और उपस्थित सभी अतिथिगणों को मेरा हार्दिक नमस्कार। मुझे अत्यंत प्रसन्नता है श्री नीरज कुमार के द्वारा विरचित इस नव्य कृति के लिए कुछ दो चार शब्दों में संदेश भेज सकूं। वस्तुतः मैं खुद उपस्थित होना चाहता था, कुछ अपरिहार्य कारणों से नहीं आ सका। मैं इसके लिए क्षमा प्रार्थी हूँ। वहाँ आने से आप जैसे विशिष्ट विद्वानों का दर्शन होता, ज्ञान का एक विशेष जो सत्र है उस सत्र का आनंद लेने का मौका मिलता। खैर जो भी हो, आप लोगों के समक्ष मैं दो चार शब्द श्री काल चक्र के विषय में बोलना चाहूँगा। सर्वप्रथम मैं इस अद्भुत कृत्य के लिए श्री नीरज कुमार जी को हार्दिक बधाई समर्पित करता हूँ। आपने जिस परिश्रम से जो काम किया है काल चक्र पर, यह अद्भुत है। मैं पहले सोचता था सामान्य ट्रांसलेशन होगा, सामान्य अंग्रेजी में अनुवाद किया होगा, परंतु जब कृति सामने आई तो पता लगा कि इसमें तो ट्रांसलेशन तो कुछ भी नहीं है। ट्रांसलेशन तो एक छोटी सी बात है। इन्होंने इतनी विवेचनाएं की हैं, इतने डायग्राम दिए हैं, इतना अद्भुत कृत्य किया, और इतना ही नहीं, प्रत्येक शब्द को अलग अलग अर्थ दिए, प्रत्येक शब्द के अलग अलग अर्थ भी इन्होंने दिया और उसमें रोमन में भी लिख दिया। उसके बाद उस पर विवेचनाएं भी की। यह देख करके मैं 2 रात तो सो नहीं सका। ये पढ़ते मैं लगभग 100 पेज से ज़्यादा पढ़ा और इतना आनंदित होता रहा, क्योंकि मैं संस्कृत का विद्यार्थी होने के नाते वो मूल भी मैं पढ़ता हूँ। तो मूल का पढ़ते हुए फिर उसका अर्थ उन्होंने कैसे किया, इसको देखते हुए मुझे परम आनंद का अनुभव हुआ। और साथ ही इस कृति को इस प्रकार लाने के लिए डीके प्रिंट वर्ल्ड के जो प्रमुख व्यक्तित्व हैं श्री सुशील मित्तल जी, मेरे परम मित्र हैं। उनका जो मेहनत है, उनका जो श्रम है, उसका क्या कहना। क्योंकि सुशील जी को मैं व्यक्तिगत रूप से जानता हूँ और कई बार उनके साथ उनके घर में मैं रहा हूँ। जब दिल्ली आता हूँ तो मुझे छोटे भाई की तरह अपने घर में रखते हैं। उनको मैंने देखा कि रात भर प्रूफ रीडिंग करते रहते हैं। राइटर ने लिख कर के भेजा, कंप्यूटर में उसका चेक ठीक से हुआ कि नहीं वो खुद मिलाते हैं, खुद देखते हैं, और डायक्रिटिकल मार्क्स ठीक से लगे हैं कि नहीं संस्कृत के ग्रंथों में, ये भी देखते हैं। इस प्रकार संपादन करने में सिद्ध हस्त अपने सुशील मित्तल जी भी हैं। उनको भी मैं हार्दिक धन्यवाद व्यक्त करता हूँ इतनी अद्भुत कृति को सामने लाने के लिए। और साथ ही इस कार्यक्रम को आयोजना करने के लिए श्री इंदिरा गांधी नेशनल सेंटर फॉर द आर्ट के सभी व्यक्तित्वों को, विशेषकर चेयरपर्सन श्री राम बहादुर राय जी को हार्दिक अभिनंदन, उनका हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूँ। वस्तुतः काल चक्र के विषय में बहुत सी चीज़ें कुछ वर्ष पूर्व, मुझे लगता है 8-10 वर्ष हो गए, नरोपा के द्वारा विरचित शेकोदेष्टि का काल चक्र पर मैंने उसका संपादन किया, उसके कुछ मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट ढूंढे, संपादन करने के बाद उसका अनुवाद भी किया और वो वाराणसी से प्रकाशित है। तो मैं सोचता था इस मूल काल चक्र पर काम किया जाए, और विमल प्रभा टीका अत्यंत प्रसिद्ध और बहुत विस्तृत टीका है, उसका मैं कुछ विद्वानों को, कुछ विदेशियों को, कुछ विद्यार्थियों को पढ़ाता भी हूँ। तो मैं सोचता था उस पर काम किया जाए, परंतु नीरज जी ने जो काम किया उसके बाद किसी काम की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं। वैसे तो काम बहुत किए जा सकते हैं, परंतु उन्होंने जो अभी काम किया उसके आलोक में तो अभी कुछ भी करने की ज़रूरत नहीं, उन्हीं को एक काम सौंपा जाए, मुझे ऐसा लगता है। और काल चक्र अपने आप में अद्भुत चीज़ है, और यह काल चक्र यह योग है, वस्तुतः यह योग है। प्रथम पद्य में ही योग के विषय में कहा, योगम श्री काल चक्रे कलियुग समये मुक्ति हेतुरो नराणाम। इस कलियुग में मुक्ति के लिए, मनुष्यों के मुक्ति के लिए इस काल चक्र तंत्र के अंतर्गत काल चक्र योग का प्रतिपादन किया है भगवान ने ये कहा। अर्थात काल चक्र के विधि पूर्वक अवलंबन अथवा काल चक्र के अवलंबन द्वारा साधक सद्य ही मुक्त हो जाता है। इसी के लिए इस ग्रंथ की आविर्भूति हुई। काल चक्र के रहस्यों को विस्तृत एवं संक्षेप में विभिन्न आचार्यों ने व्याख्याओं के द्वारा प्रतिपादित किया। उसी क्रम में आचार्य नाड़ोपा भी बोल सकते हैं उनको, कई उनके नाम हैं, उन्होंने शेकोदेष्टिका की व्याख्या की, रचना की। व्याख्यान के दो प्रकार हैं, हम सब जानते हैं, एक तो समास विधि है और एक व्यास विधि। विस्तार पूर्वक किए गए विवेचनों को व्यास पद्धति कहते हैं, और संक्षेप में जो चीज़ बताया जाए उसको समास विधि बोलते हैं। तो काल चक्र के दोनों विधियां उपलब्ध हैं, और यह अत्यंत महत्वपूर्ण कृति श्री नीरज जी ने अपने सामने उपस्थापन किया। और भगवान बुद्ध खुद उपदेश देते हैं, धान्य कटक में इसका उपदेश हुआ। और वो काल चक्र में क्या क्या विषय हैं इसको कहने में बड़ी मुसीबत है, क्योंकि बहुत विषयों का उन्होंने वर्णन किया है काल चक्र में। ऐसा लगता है कि यह तो विश्वकोश जैसा लगता है, इतने विषय इसके अंदर आते हैं। शिष्य भी इसमें हैं, गुरु भी हैं, पृथ्वी के विषय में, आकाश के विषय में, पंचमहाभूत के विषय में, और ज्ञान के कारण क्या है और ज्ञान के अवरोधक तत्व क्या है, इस पर भी गुरु क्या है, शिष्य क्या है, समय क्या है। तो हर विषय पर काल चक्र पर चिंतन हम देख सकते हैं। तो काल चक्र मंडल क्या है, इसी ग्रंथ में कहा, देहे विश्वस्य मानं दिन निशि समयो मास संक्रांति भेदा नाड़ीनां सूक्ष्म संख्या प्रकृति सुपुरुषस्त्रीर्थिकानां मतञ्च वेदे कर्त्रादिभेद श्रुतमिति हि मया मण्डलं देशनीयं श्रुत्वा सौ चन्द्रवाक्यं प्रवदति सुगतो मण्डलं कालचक्रम। कालचक्र का एक मंडल बताया। तो ये मंडल कहाँ है, बाहर नहीं बताया। देहे सबसे पहले कहा कि शरीर के अंदर ही यह मंडल है। देहे विश्वस्य मानम, इस प्रकार मंडल। और सूक्ष्म नाड़ियों की बात की, ये 72,000 नाड़ियों की बात करते हैं, और भी नाड़ियों की बात करते हैं। उसमें से मुख्य 3 नाड़ी हैं, सूर्य नाड़ी, चंद्र नाड़ी और एक सुषुम्ना। ये 3 नाड़ियों की बात करते हैं। वस्तुतः सुषुम्ना में प्रवेश कराना ही काल चक्र का प्रमुख रहस्य है, प्रमुख मार्ग है। उसके बाद कहा कि गुरु कैसा होना चाहिए, इसी में देखिए, आदौ संसेवनीयो गुरुरपि समयी वज्रयानाधिरूढ़ः तत्त्वध्यायी त्वलुब्धो व्यपगत कलुष क्षान्तिशीलोद्भवरति। और कहा एक गुरु कौन है, वज्र सत्व ही गुरु हैं। माराणाम वज्रदंड, काम तत्व के पूर्णतया नष्ट करते हैं। वज्रदंड है और वह धरणी तल में, पृथ्वी तल में वो वज्र सत्व ही है, ऐसा कहा। उसके बाद दीक्षा का काल बताया। चैत्रांते श्वेत पर्वे परहित गुरुणा मंडलम वर्तयित्वा देया सप्ताभिषेक कलुषमलहरा पुण्य हेतु श्रुतानाम। चैत्र मास के अंतिम में काल चक्र की दीक्षा होनी चाहिए और मंडल बनाना चाहिए। 7 प्रकार के अभिषेक वहाँ देने चाहिए। इस प्रकार पूजा वै योगिनी नाम, और योगिनियों की पूजा करनी चाहिए। इस प्रकार काल चक्र में सभी विधियों का वर्णन है। और वस्तुतः काल चक्र करुणा काल जो है करुणा मूर्ति है, ये शून्यता मूर्ति है। वह मूर्ति काल रूप है, वही समृद्धि सत्य भी है। और कहा इसके लिए करुणा शून्यता मूर्ति ही काल समृद्धि रूपिणी शून्यता चक्रमित्युक्तम काल चक्र द्वयोक्षर। अथवा काल चक्र में प्रयुक्त मात्रिकाओं के अनुसार भी ककार का अर्थ कारण के शांत होने पर लकार से लय का बोध होता है, चकार से चंचल चित्त का और ककार से क्रम पूर्वक निरोध का बोध होता है, इसलिए काल चक्र कहा गया। इसीलिए कहा ककारात् कारणे शांते लकारात् चलयोत्र वै चकारात् चलचित्तस्य क्रकारात् क्रमबंधनात्। यहाँ कारण से तात्पर्य बोधिचित्त काय ऐसा कहा गया है। शांत जागृत अवस्था के क्षय होने से विकल्प रहित काय बिंदु निरोध के द्वारा ही निर्वाण काय की स्थिति है। ऐसा होने पर स्वप्नावस्था के क्षय होने से प्राण प्रतिष्ठित हो जाता है, शून्य में विलीन हो जाता है। प्राण के लय से नाड़ी बिंदुओं का निरोध होता है। इस प्रकार साधक धीरे धीरे मुक्ति की अवस्था में जाता है। और यहाँ पर स्मशान भूमि की बात हुई, आड़क भूमि की बात हुई, सुषुप्ति की बात हुई, हृदय में धर्मकाय की स्थिति की बात। इस प्रकार बहुत विषयों का यहाँ पर वर्णन है। और इन सब चीज़ों पर मैं नहीं जाऊँगा, ये तो हमें किताब पढ़ने पर सब कुछ मिल जाएगा। सब लोगों को मैं निवेदन करना चाहता हूँ कि इस पुस्तक को लें और इसका आद्योपांत अध्ययन करें। काल चक्र के विषय में जो भी हम लोगों के मन में संशय, इस पुस्तक से सब संशय नष्ट हो जाएंगे। इतना मेहनत किया है आदरणीय नीरज जी ने, इतना मेहनत किया है, उसको देख करके मैं तो अभिभूत हो जाता हूँ। और आप सब लोगों को मैं हार्दिक अभिनंदन करते हुए, नमस्कार करते हुए अपने 2 शब्दों को यहीं विराम देता हूँ। और इस कृति को आप लोग पढ़ें, यह फिर से निवेदन करते हुए मैं अपने वाणी को विराम देता हूँ। नमस्कार, धन्यवाद।
Thanks are due to Sri Neeraj Kumar ji, the author of this Mahagranth, and also to Professor Ramesh Chandra Gaur, Head Kalanidhi Vivag. Thank you so much.